This week in economics on the 30th of October, 2016, coming to you via WBRN Radio in Boston and over the Bostonred Network. The Fed will meet this week. However, the consensus with most economists, interviewed by Reuters, that there will be no action. And part of the reason, this is an election year and there's a lot of volatility out there in the anticipation of which administration will replace President Obama's administration in 2017. We had the volatility index here. I'm not certain if we have it now here, but we did in fact, I guess we don't have it anymore, but nonetheless, volatility did increase because of the election and where it direction it would be heading in because of events on Friday, the entry, I guess we'll call it, of the Clinton email scandal or whatever, that the markets were down on Friday. And now some of the strategists assume that it has blown over. In the U.S., we have what is called, in many states, early voting. So thus, with early voting, some of the impact which you normally have in what we term on the political side an October surprise is not an October surprise. So thus it's probably something in between an October surprise here. This is from Reuters. Let me get this in here. Meeting in sight, but election looms for the market is the title of this particular article here, and the latest reminders of how upset the expected outcome could rattle investors. News came on Friday that the Federal Bureau of Investigations was looking in there, and this is what we were looking for here. The CBOE volatility index, as Wall Street's fear gauge, is to a 2-week high. And one of the things we look from Becky Helwick, she's a senior vice president at BB&T Wealth Management in Birmingham, Alabama. We're so close to the election, the polls are boiling, and there's always something going on, she says. And let's take a look at this index as we start off here. And we'll then go to the petro supplies. Now, this particular index here has been around for a very long time, and we're trying to get exactly where it is today. And normally it appears, and it's not appearing. Sometimes things don't work out as we would think. We'll see very quickly here if we can get the latest numbers on it and exactly where it is. But it is at a 2-week high, so thus we'll well, it's not cooperating with us, but nonetheless, the figure did not pop up as it normally would have popped up the other day for me. Here we go. Is at 15.36, basically where it is. We can actually get a real-time quote here, and we're not getting it. Well, here we go. The range on a 52-week high was 17.5. The low was 14.62. and we are basically, let me see where we are here. We'll get today up in just a minute here. Okay. Let's see. We are basically, if we look at a 10-day average here at 12.98 today. Oops. Oh, here we go. We're at 16.19. This is a volatility index. We eventually, if you look for something, you will find it. So that's where we are today. The market is volatile from its low of 14.62 is where we are, and the change is 0.83. In other words, a 5.4% change in the CBOT volatility index. So we got that one behind us. Let's move quickly to Bloomberg, and I think we're moving to Bloomberg here. And the oops. Here we go. And OPEC. And the various nations out there, OPEC split on preventing deal with other suppliers. They've been meeting in Vienna. The Brazilians are in the talks there, won't restrict their petro supplies. Azerbaijan Energy Minister said the outcome of the process hung on Iran and Iraq, two nations most interested in increasing their production rather than decreasing their production. So basically where they are, Algiers was the one nation that would cut supplies will only make a serious dent in the surplus it produces outside the group. Join the accord, and basically that's around $50 a barrel. Going to get that out. OPEC agreed in the Algerian capital, that was on September 28th, to reduce output to a range of 32.5 million to 33 million barrels a day, compared with the 33.4 in September. So representatives of Brazil, Azerbaijan, Mexico, Oman, and the Russian Federation attended the meeting with Kazakhstan in there. These nations collectively produced 19.6 million barrels a day last year, about 21% of the global supply. That's equivalent to half of OPEC's output. So no cuts there, so you can appear that prices will be about the same next year as this year. Kazakhstan plans to boost output next year following a restart of the 50 billion excuse me, Kazakh oil field after 16 years of development. So the field is currently pumping 100,000 barrels a day, and it'll rise to 200,000 by the end of the year, 370 by the end of 2017. That's according to any Esta. That's an Italian company. I hope we didn't butcher the name. Too bad. Kazani launched. It's a huge deal for us, and we're not ready to abandon it. We are planning on that. So that is where the oil production is. We'll go now to GDP, very important, a number that was released on Friday, talked about across the channels, I should say. Gross domestic product increased at an annual rate of 2.9% in Q3 of 2016, according to the advanced estimate released by the Bureau of Economic Analysis. In second quarter, real GNP grew by 1.4%. The Bureau emphasized the third quarter advanced estimate released today is based upon source data that are incomplete. So in other words, the second estimate for the third quarter based on more complete data will not be released until after the election on the 29th of November. The increase in real GNP in the third quarter reflects positive contributions from personal income expenditures, that's PCE, exports, private inventory investments, federal government spending, and non-residential fixed investment that were partially offset by negative contributions from residential fixed investment and state and local government spending. Imports are subtracted from the particular calculation. Current dollar GDP increased 4.4%, or $201.1 billion. That's in Q3, at a level of 18,251.2 billion. In the second quarter, current dollar GDP increased to 3.7, or 168 billion. They have the price index for gross domestic purchases increased 1.6% in Q3 compared with an increase of 2.1% in Q2. The PCE price index increased 1.4% compared with an increase of 2% excluding food and energy. Personal income, current dollar personal income increased 153.6 billion in Q3 compared with an increase of 153.1 billion in Q2. Disposable personal income increased 125.3 billion, or 3.6% in Q3 compared with 140.6 billion, or 4.1% in Q2. In the real disposable income increased in the second real disposable income increased 2.2% compared with 2.1. Personal savings is something we look at here, 800.6 billion in the third quarter compared with 793.5 billion in Q2. The personal income savings rate, personal savings as a percentage of disposable income, was 5.7% in Q3, same as in Q2. And a little bit on the source data. We won't go into that there, but and if we look at the release dates here in 2007, depending on which one we look at. The next release would be the third estimate on December 21st, and as we previously stated, on the 29th. This is for the third advanced here on the 29th, and corporate profits on the 29th and 31st of December after the elections have been held. So that is the latest from the Bureau of Economic Statistics. Now let's roll on to the BBC. In a couple of events there, a treaty was signed between the EU and Canada, a trade treaty. You hear this is called CETA. It This so-called free trade deal was signed in Brussels by the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and top officials from the EU. All 28 EU states approved the deal on Friday when a consensus was reached. It's called a Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement known as CETA. Required all nations to endorse it. The deal removes 99% of tariffs, and officials hope it will generate an increased trade worth $12 billion. I'm not sure if that's Canadian dollars. And, well, I assume, and 10.9 billion euros, and it would be 9.8 billion pounds a year. Now, the deal was due to be signed, earlier, but Prime Minister Trudeau's plane had some problems. It's a new chapter, according to Jean-Paul Juncker. And let's see, Canada has a new economic opening to 500 million Europeans. The EU believes this provide could do the trade pact if they are. So in other words, many citizens, 7 years to negotiate this particular trade deal, and the number of tariffs is 99%. This is sort of an overview here of 500 million euros, and Greenpeace environmental groups opposed it, and the reason it was held up because of a region of Belgium that wanted some assurances. The French-speaking region of Wallonia demanded strong safeguards on labor, environment, and consumer standards. It also wanted more protection for Walloon farmers who now face new competition from Canadian imports. And that is always the balance in these so-called trade deals. On one side of the coin, it advances certain interests, usually the corporate interests within those countries, as opposed to small farmers, small entrepreneurs within the country. And then we bring in the environmental part of it. Is looms much larger today than it did, say, 10 years ago, with global with climate change or global warming, what do you want to call it, and obviously with the consumers. Now, tariffs will be reduced, but does it benefit Canada more than it benefits the EU? Of course, at the same time, the EU will be able to sell in to Canada, but Canada is a reasonably small market there. So again, the opportunities of 500 million people on the EU side of the coin. So let me cover some of the other news here. We've finished the U.S. economy, fastest growing in 2 years there. So we moved along there. The Bank of England. Carney, he's the governor of the Bank of England. He used to be the Canadian governor there. Took over in an 8-year term there, and more than likely than not to choose to return to Canada. That was from the Times in 2018. The Bank of England said nothing has changed. The governor said that he will make a decision by the end of the year whether or not he'll go back to Canada. Theresa May, who is the Prime Minister there, also has been critical of banks' schemes for the economy known as quantitative easing there. And in a speech, she said that under quantitative easing, people with assets have gotten richer, people without them have suffered. That is a common argument given in many places. Many would like Carney to stay on, arguing that it would provide a welcome continuality to business and the economy, and may help counter any uncertainties caused by the Brexit negotiation there. But he's, I think, to, as they say, head for, as we'd say in the U.S., greener pastures. On Thursday, he will hold a press conference following the publication of the bank's quarterly inflation report. Announced the result of the latest interest meetings. Inflation report included the assessment of how the economy is performing. The latest figures show that the economy grew at 0.5 in a July to September period, which was stronger than economists had expected. Given that the economy has performed well since June, Mr. Carney is likely to be asked about his forecasts there, and of course, in view of the leave of the there. So that is where the British stand. A little interesting article, item here, I would say, not article, that the Swiss ticket machines to sell Bitcoin, digital currency. They have at the Swiss rail. They'll be selling those coins. From 11 November, customers will be able to trade Swiss francs for Bitcoins using ticket machines. They will not be able to buy tickets with the web-based currency, though. So they'll basically just be selling it. I thought they were going to be able to get real tickets. Has been testing customer demand for Bitcoins across the country. Transactions will be capped at 500 Swiss francs. That is 415 pounds, or $500. One Bitcoin is equivalent to about 708.64 Swiss francs, but it's possible to buy a fraction of the currency. Swiss financial services company SwissPay is providing the conversion service. There have been few possibilities to attain Bitcoins in Switzerland until now, with its 1,000 plus machines, operate a dense around-the-clock distribution network. The ticket machines may prove to be popular with those who struggle to buy Bitcoins through their bank accounts, as many report high fees for international transactions. The Bitcoin, the world's first digital currency, has drawn interest in ways to move away from the regular money. Transfers are handled directly between users on the net. Back in July, the Swiss town of Zag, ZU, launched a 6-month scheme letting residents pay for public services using Bitcoins. So Bitcoin is coming along very slowly. Of course, it's in Switzerland. Before the Cayman Islands and others came in, they were the capital of would-be banking, world banking. You got a Swiss bank account, a numbered account, but now the Swiss will give you up to various sundry operators. All right, let's move on here with this, and we'll do the numbers. Make sure we have not missed out on anyone here. I don't think we have. Uber drivers win a key employment case. And this has been the case all over. A ruling by the London Employment Tribunal means drivers for the ride-a-haul service will be entitled to holiday pay, paid rest breaks, and a national minimum wage. It's a victory for 4,000 drivers in England and Wales. Uber said it would appeal against the ruling that if it had acted on lawful. It's a Frisco-based company. They had a ruling accused Uber of restoring its documentation to fiction, twisting language. Where's a dirty little company here? The dark side of, for many workers, the gig economy is a rigged economy where the bosses can get out of paying the minimum wage and provide bases like holiday pay and rest breaks. So in other words, this gig economy is not what it is made out to be. The net earnings, this is one example here, was 5.30 an hour for one Faran in August of 2015. Not sure what the minimum there is. The overwhelming majority of drivers who use the Uber app want to keep the freedom and flexibility. That's the story that they used to do with flex time, so-called casual labor, as they termed it in the U.S., which turned out not to be very casual at all. So now these services are catching on there. Reasons for reserved judgment on preliminary hearing are sent to the parties. This was on the 28th of October. By several claimants here. Mr. J. Farran was one of the claimants versus Uber. Claimants in these consolidated proceedings are current or former Uber drivers. There are about 30,000 Uber drivers operating in the London area, 40,000 in the UK as a whole. They transport, let's get to some of the preliminaries here. Was it 30 million? This 2 million passengers there, and it goes on to talk about the smartphone, the claimant under the Employment Rights Act of 1996. And the issue is a list of issues presented, and we've already talked about that. Uber's markets a variety of products. It reflects a large range of services which passengers may wish to receive. And Uber works in this way. Fare-paying passengers must be 18 or older. Didn't know that. They register by providing certain personal information, including their debit or credit cards, and they download the application. That's the same in the U.S. The driver is not aware of the destination until he has collected the passenger. On arrival at the destination, the driver swipes the app. Payment at the end of any trip, the fare is calculated by the Uber app based upon GDP. And thus, the fare is paid. And one driver here that joined the organization at a time when the standard charge was set at 20% and the high figure was never applied. That's a service fee for the app there, and how it works out, and we'll move from that. But we'll go and do the numbers now. So-called gig economy turns out to be not what people assumed it would be, and that is usually always the case. Let's do the numbers here and see how the markets have fared. Or didn't fare, as one perhaps might put it. Oops. There we go. Pushed the wrong button here, and that sometimes happens to all of us. Nonetheless, the FTSE All-Share at 6.28 on a Friday. The BBC Global 30, before we get past ourselves here, was at negative 45.55. In Frankfurt, the DAX was down at 20.89. In Paris, 15.1 tenth. In Brussels, they were down on Friday, 28.41. In Madrid, 4.10. In Zurich, they were also down 15.82. In Moscow on Friday, 3.27. In Johannesburg, a negative 294.82. In Bombay, 25.61. In Karachi, 95.49 in the negative. In Lahore, also in the negative, 45.11. In Colombo, also negative 13.65. In Tehran on Wednesday, for 90.80. In Sydney, negative 7.450. The Nikkei on Friday, 109.99. The Hang Seng in Hong Kong, 177.54. And in Shanghai, they were negative 8.08. And in New York, they were also in the negative 8.49. The Nasdaq, negative 25.87. And the Merck, that is a commodities market out in the Midwest city of Chicago, well, they're just missing. In San Pablo, 1,046.7 in the negative, and in Mexico, finally, 107.47. And on to the commodities. We talked about OPEC, the non-OPEC nations, and now we'll find out where we are. Brent crude, down 76 cents at $49.71. The spot was down 93 cents at $49.89. West Texas Intermediate down $1.02 at $48.70. T-Boone Pickens is still jumping for joy because he remembers $15 barrel oil. Of course, that was back in the 70s. So value of the dollar, he's doing a little bit better, but not that much better. Nonetheless, gold was down $3.40 on the Forex. He's a gold futures index at $1,265.90. Dubai was up $2.70 at $1,070.40. Silver was down 5 cents at $17.61. The Euronext Life futures. Let's see. Cocoa was up $2. Corn futures are down 25 cents. And Robusta coffee was up $20. We always look at that. And for those that are in the white sugar market, it was down $7.30. The Bloomberg Commodity Index at 85.91, it was down 30 cents, or 1.4. This will do it for us, those in business. Make it a productive week going up to election nearing day in the U.S. And for the consumer, obviously your eyes are on the prize as we move past the World Series and into the election season. And that is the, second week in November. And we move towards the holiday shopping season in earnest. Have a wonderful day from those of us at WBRN Radio.